It is an honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Vijay Kumar Saraswat Garu, Member NITI Aayog, Government of India. Dr. Vijay Kumar Saraswat Garu is a highly esteemed scientist and member of NITI Aayog, renowned for his extensive experience in defense research encompassing both fundamental and applied sciences. Having served as a secretary of the Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO, he has made remarkable contributions to the indigenous development of various missiles like Prithvi, Dhanush, Prahar, and Agni 5, as well as the two-tiered ballistic missile defense system. Dr. Saraswat Garu played a pivotal role in establishing infrastructure to support the nuclear doctrine, developing cybersecurity technologies, and enhancing the nation's defensive capabilities against ballistic missile threats. Furthermore, he has been actively involved in the development of alternative energy systems, such as clean coal technologies, concentrated solar power system, bioenergy, and hydrogen-based economies. He has been pursuing major initiatives in the sustainable and resilient transportation system via e-vehicles, FCV, hybrid vehicles, and hydrogen-powered long-haul transport system. Dr. Saraswat Garu has made significant contributions to the advancement of technology, including the development of silicon photonics and the configuration of the M processor for ICT applications and the roadmap for the Indian Railway Research Institute. As a member of NITI Aayog, Dr. Saraswat Garu has initiated the Methanol Economy Program, aiming to utilize methanol for transportation, energy generation, and chemical production. Additionally, he has chaired committees on technical textiles and body armor, contributing to the futuristic growth of these sectors in India. Dr. Saraswat's outstanding achievements have been recognized through numerous awards, including the Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan, as well as honorary doctorates from over 25 universities. Sir, it is indeed an honor to have you here with us on this occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Vijay Kumar Saraswat Garu to deliver the Foundation Day lecture.
Andarike Namaskar. Very good. Now we are in the afternoon mode. No, we are still in the morning mode. So, very good morning. My greetings to all of you for the New Year 2026. And after listening to the journey of the last 30 years of Vijnana Jyoti, I am quite certain that this institution is going to grow immensely over the years because you have done a human work. For the 30 years you have spent, I would like to congratulate the team on this Foundation Day. Sorry to hear that you had an interruption in the series of Foundation Day celebration, but I fully endorse the views of Dr. Durga Prasad. This is one occasion in the life of any institution that should be always celebrated because it's like your birthday. Even at the age of 75, I celebrate my birthday. So that's the way it should be. I would like to extend my greetings to all the dignitaries here, starting with my dear, very close friend, associate for many years, Dr. Durga Prasad, who made tremendous contribution to India's security. I know him for many years, right from, and also known him when he was in Delhi in the Prime Minister's office, providing special security for the VVIPs and so on. I think he has been one who has laid the foundation for what we call as the internal security as the buzzword for meeting various challenges. I would also like to greet the Principal, Shri Chennakeshwar Rao, Advisor, Secretary General. I'm not able to recall all the names, but all the same, my greetings to all of you. Also, I would like to greet the faculty members who have been responsible for training, mentoring all young students for the last so many years, which has resulted in what we call today as India becoming the house for the global human resource. Because I don't know how many students every year migrate to foreign institutions from this institution. But generally what we are seeing that India is really contributing to the world global human resource requirement. So I'm sure Vijnana Jyoti is also doing the same thing. Friends, I'm going to talk to you about my favorite subject. I I am of the opinion that any educational institution cannot be complete, cannot be productive unless it has a good research and innovation ecosystem. Particularly in the today's scenario when India is looking to what we call as becoming self-reliant. And we are also talking of Viksit Bharat. We are talking, our Honorable Prime Minister's call is that we have to be Viksit Bharat at the 2047. And we have to be self-reliant, Atmanirbhar. These two words have got a lot of meaning. Many people think that Viksit Bharat means everybody will have everything. But there are indicators which are required to be reckoned with when we call us Viksit Bharat. So for India to become a Viksit Bharat, there are three areas. We should achieve sustained economic growth. Today, everybody is saying that despite the downturn in the global economic era, you find that India is growing at the rate of 6 to 8%, average about 7%. So that shows that our economy is robust now and it is really going into that. But yesterday I was watching a podcast by somebody on the net, and he was telling that if India has to become a 30 trillion economy or come to same what the US has, US is about 37 trillion today, and they are growing at the rate of only less than 4%. So if we have to catch up with what US has done, we have to grow at the rate of 13%. That means that is the place where all of you have to contribute to take our economy from 7% to 13%. Poverty reduction is one major requirement. All of us know. Multidimensional poverty we have done significantly well. But poverty measured in terms of income, I think we are not doing well. We are about $5,000 and the world is in the region of $20,000 to $25,000. So we have to catch up on that. Similarly, any economy has to grow only if it is significantly strong in the innovation in science and technology. If we are not an innovative nation, we cannot catch up. You have seen a country like Israel. I don't know how many of you have read that book by some famous Israeli author, which is about startup nation. And there you can see a small country like that, today in the innovation it tops. The kind of innovation they are doing and bringing economic impact is fantastic. Second part, which is also important for Atmanirbharta, is that we have to have environmental sustainability, because economic growth without environmental sustainability is like not having a place to live, although you have all the resources. So for us to remain alive on this planet Earth and have our future generations to remain peacefully, provide all the natural resources what they have, keep the environment clean so they are healthy, I think it is important that we have to work for economic growth with environmental sustainability. And the last point is, all of us know that there is a lot of differential between haves and have-nots. So it has to be inclusive society. Inclusive in the sense that everybody has equitable distribution of wealth, resources, and they are all living well. So all citizens should be able to get quality education. They should be able to have good health care, and they should have opportunities for advancement. This is the institution which provides that by education, by generation of knowledge, by making them, by mentoring them for what they should do in the future. So the Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have set a few goals, because merely qualitative indicators will not help. The quantitative part is the 30 trillion economy by 2047. And we also want to become self-reliant in science and technology. Particularly, my definition of self-reliance is a bit different from what many others feel. My definition, having come from defense where I have suffered, as a nation has suffered from the controls which were exercised on technology availability for our nation, is independence from controls. we should be able to out of the controls. And hence self-reliance in S&T is very important. For environmental sustainability, we have to bring carbon neutrality. And that is another part which our Honorable Prime Minister has been talking today. Net zero by 2070, that is the goal we have set for ourselves. And that requires tremendous technological inputs in all our energy scenario, particularly when the energy demand with the industrialization is going to go from what it is today. Even in 2030, just about 4 years away, the energy demand is going to be of the order of 937 gigawatts. And then you can imagine from 475 today what we are. It's almost going to be double, more than double. Finally, for people who are sitting here and for the generations, we should have a deep tech industry which should be able to provide jobs. You must be wondering why I have put this adjective to the industry. I have put this adjective industry because for stable economic growth, service industry is not the only passage. Service is like exchange of money from one end to another one. If you want to create wealth, it is through manufacturing. So you have to have deep tech industries which should be able to work on that. So there are 4 pillars for Viksit Bharat: science and technology leadership, where areas like space, artificial intelligence, biotech, quantum computing, all of them which are emerging technologies have to be mastered. Second one is, I mentioned, to sustainable and green growth with renewable energy, electric vehicles and climate action. And for the young people who are sitting here, I don't want to repeat what Honorable Prime Minister says, that what we need is job providers, not job seekers. So entrepreneurship and digital economy becomes a very, very important part, which should be driven by artificial intelligence and looking towards a $1 trillion economy by 2030. Now, youth has to play a very important role in this whole game. And youth can play only if we can train our youth in that direction. And that is where institution like Vijnana Jyoti comes, which will promote research in your institution. I did not get much idea about what kind of research work is going on here, because in the address of Dr. Chennakeshwar Rao, I did not find much mention about it. But that's a very, very important area. Any educational institution cannot remain abreast with the latest unless the faculty and the students go into a research mode. If you have to upgrade with the emerging technologies, I think research is very important, and research and innovation is the building block for economic growth. For that, we have to start from the beginning, and that's why STEM becomes very important: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That has to be part of your growth. And for entrepreneurship and getting the economy, you have to be very good in patent filing. So in other words, research is the backbone for Viksit Bharat because it drives innovation and industrial growth. It boosts the GDP and wealth creation, and also increases global competitiveness. So that is if you want to be okay, then you have to have research. Now, as our Honorable Prime Minister has said in the Science Congress, that it is only through research and innovation that the country can achieve. And that's why he enunciated at that time various schemes for Atmanirbhar Bharat, like the development of semiconductors, artificial intelligence, defense technology. You see the kind of expansion of the defense technology is taking place, particularly opening up of the defense sector, where the private industries are now allowed to develop, design, and supply to the armed forces. Healthcare solutions, you know what we need today. And we should not depend on imports. Deep tech for economic growth, I mentioned to you, very important to reach that 1 trillion economy. It strengthens manufacturing and job creation. I think what we have seen in the last about 25 years or 30 years, I must say, because 94 onwards, we got into service sector in a big way. The IT industry has been driving our economy in a big way. 67% is the contribution of the service sector in our economic growth, whereas manufacturing is only 15 to 17%. We had made a target in 2015 that we should go 25, but unfortunately, it has not happened. So we have to push the manufacturing because that is the one which will create more and more jobs. That can happen because we have to change our industrial system through what we call as the Industry 4.0 or automation and things like that. We have to also meet the critical national challenges, which are climate change, energy security, healthcare for all, agriculture, all needs backup from the science. Now, we should see why I'm talking so much. Are the other nations doing the same thing? You see the comparison. Almost every nation that has leapfrogged over the last 50 years has done through strategic investment in research and innovation. For example, a country like China, R&D investment is 2.6% of the GDP. They are working on artificial intelligence, 6G communications, semiconductors, quantum. These are the latest technologies. Besides, they have mastered many other. Today, they are the global patent leader. Deep tech export they are doing, which is almost about 20%. South Korea, a very small nation. How much percentage of GDP? 4.9%. And they are the top leaders in electronics, mobility, and biotechnology. 90% of the firms in South Korea conduct in-house R&D, which is quite different from India. If you look at our industry, the research, in-house research in industry is practically non-existent. The investment of the private sector in the research is abysmally low. I don't want to give you a number because it's less than 1%. So that is the kind of a problem. Whereas if you see firms, 90% come from there. Israel, which I mentioned to you, 6.3% of the GDP. And they are fantastic as far as the defense technology is concerned. You know, today after the Russian weapons, what we used to get, any other nation which is supporting us in the defense equipment is the Israel. And they are also fantastic in cyber security and agriculture. In fact, a small nation like that has changed the trend of agriculture. You know drip irrigation, you know automation. We are doing a lot of collaborative work with Israel to improve our productivity. And one in tech startup per capita. That is the kind of growth of the startups there. Comparatively, if you see India, our investment is very low, 0.64% of GDP. And this has remained almost static for the last 20-25 years. We have a fragmented strategy, which is driven mostly by the public investment. As I mentioned to you, in fact, I have not brought that slide, I normally present. If you take US, the private investment in the research comes to about 56%. Rest all is public and others. Whereas in our case, it is quite different. So public heavy, low tech transfer. Our technology transfer methodologies are low. That's why we are ranking 40 in the Global Innovation Index and 1% of the global IP filings. So I would say that for a country to become self-reliant, a high R&D to GDP ratio directly correlates with the economic dimensions and dominance and the innovation-driven economy. Higher R&D, more patents, more high-tech and startup global competitiveness. Now, one should understand how is the research and innovation linked. Actually, it is a kind of a continuum. Whatever research you do, whether it is fundamental research, applied research, and ultimately translational research, all this is an integral part of the innovation cycle. If you see, innovation starts with random tinkering, basic research and breakthroughs. Then you go into the discovery mode where you have basic and applied research. Then based on that, you do development. That is where the engineering institution like yours come. And finally, it goes into manufacturing domain. So that is the innovation loop. And it is, innovation does not begin where the research ends. No, it's continuous. It's a loop. Innovation loop leverages a hybrid innovation management model based on science, invention, engineering, and manufacturing. To become an innovation-led economy, India must integrate knowledge creation with value creation. And that is one point which our Honorable Prime Minister mentioned, that our research has been purely for the benefit of the individual researchers. We are generating knowledge, but we are not making use of this knowledge for the benefit of the society. And hence he said we should get into translational research. And I think there has been a significant transformation that has taken place over the last about 10 to 12 years, that yes, the focus used to be mostly on the publication of papers, has shifted to now patents, shifted to transferring technology, but much more is desired to be done. So, according to him, research should be translational and interdisciplinary. I was very happy to hear that word which Dr. Chennakeshwara mentioned in his talk, that your institution is focusing on interdisciplinary. I think that's the order required, because interdisciplinary collaboration and translation bridges to move ideas from labs to real world reactions. And it's not just interdisciplinary. Actually, today, it is multidisciplinary, relating to or making use of several disciplines, or cross-disciplinary, coordinating efforts or approach by involving two or more disciplines, and transdisciplinary, thinking that transcends boundaries of conventional disciplines, and interdisciplinary. Yesterday, I was giving a talk on biotechnology. And when I mentioned to you that biotechnology can be used for carbon capture and utilization using the bioprocesses, it was tremendous energy in the biotechnologies, because I realized that they have to integrate the chemical technologies which are there for carbon capture, for conversion of the carbon dioxide into fuels or any other application. They need to use, in addition to the chemical processes, the biological processes, because then it becomes net carbon negative, because biological cycles are completely closed cycle because of the nature. So I think it is important that all of them should be utilized. Now, there are many types of innovations. Many of you have read, probably, I don't know whether you have a class or a course here we run on entrepreneurship and innovation. Do you run? If you run that, you will have, number of types of them. But I have picked up only two. One is where India is doing very well, is the incremental innovation. And another one is the breakthrough innovation, where India is not doing very well. Because we yet to find either any innovation which has got a name in the global market, or any research, major research, forget about what Dr. C.V. Raman did or some other, or a few other Nobel laureates of India have done. That's called outliers. But in general, breakthrough innovation is much to be desired. The impact of the incremental innovation is low, and that's what is happening to our economy. Incremental innovation does not impact much, but it enhances existing products and also improves the services. Whereas if you do a breakthrough innovation, it will have a high impact and it can transform industries. Risk is less when you do the incremental. So that's why we are all, because India is a risk-averse nation. We don't like to take risks. It's in our blood. We don't want to take risks. So builds on existing technologies and processes, whereas breakthrough is high risk and untested nature. Frequency also, if you see, we are very happy, more and more frequent occurs, whereas breakthrough is infrequent. Time frames are also short for incremental, whereas breakthrough requires long-term. And investment also requires moderate investment, whereas breakthrough innovation requires more investment and resources. There's an index called Global Innovation Index, and NITI Aayog has been one of the agencies which have been working on that. With the international community, we are working so that our position on the Global Innovation Index scale becomes reasonable. So we started analyzing what are the factors which are actually making the innovation index to go up. So we realized there are two types of factors. One is innovation input subsystems. What are the inputs to the innovation subsystem? And with those inputs, what are the outcomes that are coming? That is called the innovation output subindex. If you take the input substance, it is basically what kind of institutions have got, what kind of political environment is being provided for innovation, what is the kind of a regulatory environment which is provided. For example, if you know our health innovation system, development of drugs, development of vaccines, development of medical devices, it goes through a very rigorous and bureaucratic, regulatory system, to the extent that if you want to do a development of a drug today, after you have completed, lab trials, for it to go to the market in the hospitals, it takes another 15 years. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, number of CDSCO regulations and all that. So it has become a retarding factor. Whereas the same thing, if you take in US or any other places, it is a factor which aids the process of improving quality rather than making it a retarding process. So we have to look at that. Business environment. How much innovation which is done has been captured by the business. In fact, this is another thing I want to share with you. Even today, large number of startups are doing good innovation. When it comes down to taking that product into the market, we still import the Chinese or the Americans. And these young boys and girls are facing serious problems. Because the business environment actually of Indian system does not depend on research. Because we have been used to picking technologies from outside, and we have been integrating products, subsystems, based upon kit of parts or based upon items that, the solar energy, what is happening. For last 20 years, we are now doing solar energy in a big way. We have got almost in the renewable energy, solar is number 1. Okay? But what is the percentage of value addition which is done in the Indian solar energy scenario? Not even 20%. It has become a mason's job because all the panels come from China. He has to only bring a small guy who is going to make a pillar and erect the panel. That is not the one which counts. So business environment becomes very important. Human capital. They also indicate what is the kind of education system we have. Whether we are really making our people learn what is called innovation, we are run the STEM and things like that. And particularly it is applicable to tertiary education. And what is the R&D environment? I mentioned to you. Next comes infrastructure. What is the information communication technology infrastructure? India fortunately is doing very well now. General infrastructure and ecological sustainability. Market, whether the market is able to provide credit. What kind of credit to the startup companies, investments are coming. I will give you another example. All our startups today, this is about investment coming from the industry. They may start a small startup with the government funding to start with, because we have early startup funding programs in the government. But when it comes down to enhancing the funds, venture capitalists in our country are averse to supporting that. So most of our startup companies who have done some good work, they find foreign investors to come in. For example, even in your city of Hyderabad, the space investors, startups are there today, like Agnicool and this, that, and all that. Many of them initially started with ISRO funding or some funding. But today when they want to grow, all the funding is coming from Singapore or US or Japan or someplace. Why? Because our own investors are still averse to funding the startups. So that is our one negative point. Business sophistication. How many type of knowledge workers, what is the knowledge innovation link and knowledge absorption. On the outcome side, they also measure what is called knowledge technology outputs. Have we created knowledge? Have we created knowledge or not? Knowledge, what impact it has made in terms of growth, economic growth, in terms of social welfare and things like that. And how much knowledge you have diffused. A knowledge remaining in IIT does not make sense unless it is diffused into industry or diffused into other colleges. Creative outputs like intangible assets, creative goods, and so all this when we put together, all these go into making the counting the global innovation index. Fortunately, in the last 15 years, there has been a significant change because our focus has gone on translational research and innovation, research and innovation. India has successfully risen from 76 in 2014 to today we are to 39. This year's thing will come now and we have to see. I think we are almost coming to 38 or something. Indicators are there. India's research and innovation landscape, which has transformed in the last 10 to 15 years. Today we are third largest startup ecosystem. Today we have got 3+ startups added per hour in 2023. I think this number is old. Probably it must have changed more. Today we have 1,53,000 startups as on November 24, 118 unicorns, means more than $1 billion, and 12 plus billion raised in the funding in 24, and 6th in the IP filing. And one of the most important thing is, even in the area where we used to do well, we have improved, that our publications, research publication, which used to be 20,000, has gone to almost about 150,000. And our gross and expenditure on research and development, I'm not talking about percentage of GDP, gross expenditure on R&D also has gone to 127,380 crores. So that is a significant change that has happened. Now, what are the sectors which are actually driving research and innovation? One of the major sectors is IT sector, where IT is outsourcing leader. We are a global outsourcing leader. Company outsource the IT services. One of the largest, most advanced in the world today. Green transition, third largest in solar energy production. And we pursue net zero, all I mentioned to you. Healthcare, global leader in production of affordable and high quality generic medicines. We are not in the branded medicine, we are the generic medicines. And you know, India is the hub for the vaccine development. You saw what we did in the COVID time, and contributing not only to India, but to the global vaccine requirement. So we are quite good in that. We have decided that India should focus on nuclear energy as a base load power for our renewable energy scenario. So we have now given a major focus. Those of you who are following up, India has come out with a Shanti Bill, which is the modification of the Atomic Energy Act, where earlier Act never allowed any private sector to participate. The Shanti Bill is clearly bringing out that the nuclear energy development, design, production can be done by the private sector with certain controls, because nuclear is a dual use item. Nuclear can be used for weapons also, so we have to take into account that. We have to plan tripling of the contribution of nuclear energy. Space exploration, you know, we are quite well, we are cost effective. Defense sector, achievements which have been there, like the missile program, like the indigenous Vikrant and many other things, and even now the latest guns and cruise missiles which are coming. Biotechnology, I think we are doing reasonably well, valued at almost 80 billion in 22, and now we have become $150 billion. 9,000 biotech startups have come. Semiconductor, while we lagged in the semiconductor area, just now Dr. Durga Prasad was mentioning to me, but I think the initiatives of the government to the tune of $10 billion semiconductor PLI scheme, and also investments which are coming from Vedanta, Tata to the tune of $1 billion, is going to push the semiconductor also in the forefront. Artificial intelligence is very fifth globally in AI investment, 14 times since 2018, and AI workforce is projected to reach 1 million by 2030. With all these good things that are happening, still there are a lot of challenges for the research-driven innovation. What are the challenges? And I think all of you should work for that. One of the major challenges is brain drain. You tell me, sir, Dr. Chennakesha Rao, how many students from your institute every year leave for foreign? 10%. But there are other institutions in the country, this number is as high as 40 to 60%. That is the kind of situation. So brain drain is one of our major. I'm not against all of you going abroad for higher education or better education, but the point is that brain drain should flow back so that it adds to our growth. Slow technology transfer. Research publication is the focus. If you talk of any faculty in the higher education institutions, it is mostly focused on publishing papers. Now only some IITs and some NITs and some universities like central universities have started looking at translational research and taking their technology to industry. Inadequate research culture, that is also there, like many institutions don't even work for research, they are purely on education. Limited interdisciplinary research. Underinvestment in R&D, I already mentioned to you. Limited funding, I talked about investment. Lack of autonomy. I talked about regulatory controls. Autonomy is not there. Infrastructure deficiencies, yes. Not many institutions having the right infrastructure, particularly the state universities. We did a recent survey of 110 state universities in the country in NITI Aayog. The report has been put. You will find that not even 10% have got the infrastructure for doing any research work. In fact, research is abysmal there. And so there is a huge problem. It's only in the central institutions and some higher education institutions where the infrastructure is comparable to the global standard. Low industry academia collaboration, which is very well known. So government has taken many initiatives for bridging this gap between academia and industry, encouraging research in the critical fields and reducing dependence on foreign technology. These are some of the programs on the right side what I have indicated. One of them was NITI Aayog's main flagship program of Atal Innovation Mission, where we have taken innovation from schools to the colleges. And science tech policy, imprint, Startup India, NIDHI, education policy in NEP 2020, basic focus is on innovation and such, and many others like that. Many more systems are there. I'll give you an example what the private sector can do and how it can be done. There's a Yugma model which is being practiced by Wadhwani Foundation. It's a purely NGO kind of a thing, which is a policy model that embodies principle of confluence between academia and industry and government. 1,400 crore collaborative investment between GUI and Wadhwani Foundation has been worked out. It is a new PPP model. Wadhwani School of AI and Intelligence with IIT Kanpur, National Co-Funding Framework with ANRF, and Wadhwani Hub for Bioscience with IIT Bombay. These are basically to bridge the traditional silos between academia and industry so that we can be competitive, economically productive, and socially transformative. Similar scheme is like PM Vidya Lakshmi scheme, which integrates education financing with skilling pathways, providing accessible loans, scholarships, and career guidance. And in this, over 7,000 internships and innovation cells have been created. And these cells can provide real-time exposure to R&D labs, startups, and global operations. So these are some of the features of this particular scheme, where collateral and guarantor-free loans are provided, focus is on top institutions, interest subvention is there, and financial inclusion is there. AIM program, all of you might have read in papers. It has done a tremendous transformation. More than 10,000 Atal Tinkering Labs are there, and more than 1.1 crore students are actively engaged. 72 incubation centers are there. 32,000 jobs have been created. Almost 3,500 startups have been supported, and 1,000 women startups have been supported. 6,200 mentors, and 24 Atal India challenges, and 15 applied research and innovation small enterprises. So you can see, friend, a small initiative taken, how much impact it can make. There are possibilities of global collaboration, and that's why amplify research impact by engaging in global collaboration. Dr. Chinnakeswar Rao also mentioned in his address that international collaboration is not for just aping them. It is basically working with them to what we call as harmonize and also augment, synergize. Global collaborations, cutting edge infrastructure you can use, funding can be provided, commercialized pathways. And these are some of the India's schemes which are already there. Indo-US science collaboration, Indo-Japan, Europe-India, India-Germany, India-Australia, India-Israel. Many of these things, different areas are providing you opportunities for collaboration with the various institutions. So today, India has decided for some sectoral approach for research and innovation for Viksit Bharat. One of them is innovation and technology in AI, quantum computing, cyber security, biotechnology, and space technology. Similarly, we have social welfare and inclusive development plan in terms of healthcare like precision diagnostics and telemedicine. Education, we all know AI tutors in regional languages and skilling through the immersive AR, VR technologies. Social inclusion like tech-enabled assistive devices. Industry, our focus is mainly on Industry 4.0, advanced robotics and additive manufacturing. Energy, I mentioned to you, nuclear, particularly SMR, small modular nuclear reactors, and green hydrogen. In fact, this is basically the government word, but personally I feel the hydrogen need not be given a color. Hydrogen is hydrogen. The way you use it is important. So infrastructure, it could be blue hydrogen, it could be white hydrogen, pink hydrogen, or whatever, magenta hydrogen, it doesn't matter. But hydrogen produced at a affordable cost without causing harm to the environment is what we should look at. Infrastructure development like smart grids, hyperloop, and so on. And agriculture, genetically resilient, climate resilient, and vertical farming and small irrigation. Good governance, I see some very wizards in the security, Dr. Prasad, Durga Prasad, and Madam Anuradha. Law and order, AI is required in policing. Forensic genomics, smart surveillance, and with privacy checks. National security, dual-use drone technology. You saw the use of drones in the Operation Sindoor. It was a drone war. It was so much, and even today we are facing problems. So use of drone technology, satellite-based intelligence. We realized how the pendulum in a war can change if you have satellite information. I don't know how many of you are aware that Operation Sindoor, the complete real-time information about India's activities was being provided to Pakistan by the Chinese satellites in a real-time basis. So that is the kind of approach satellites can do. Indigenous defense chips. It's very important because you may import chips, but then you are vulnerable. And hence indigenous. Sustainability, of course, I mentioned to you. Climate change mitigation through CCUS, solar thermal, energy positive buildings, and so on. So from research to business, we have research alone does not build industries. It must be translated, validated, protected, and scaled. That is where innovation becomes business, and where India's scientific strength becomes economic sovereignty. So people like you who want to do this work, I would say first identify market, then develop a business plan, then leverage your university resources or college resources, safeguard your IP. Right from the beginning, you should take care of that, and build a team and seek funding. You should get, in fact, some institutions today are providing early career funding for the faculty. I don't know whether you have a similar approach here. Something like if an assistant professor joins, he gets about 2 lakhs rupees or 5 lakhs rupees, some number, I don't remember. So they get to start to set up their own labs and so on. I think we should do that. And it is an iterative process, and adaptation is very important. So there are two major providers for innovation. Connecting R&D, technology transfer, and startups. One is called Incubator, which works between startup, R&D, and tech transfer. They are actually critical interface where research transforms into application. Intellectual property rights become investable and startups emerge. Then, of course, technology transfer office. I don't know whether your institution has got, but every institution should have a technology transfer office manned by people who are passionate about technology transfer. I'll give you examples. I've seen technology transfer office in many of the national laboratories. You know who is manning that particular office? A person who is not required for any activity in the institution. He is made the chief. Then you can imagine what will be the kind of drive, what will be the kind of passion. That's not the way TTO should be done. Incubators provide physical and intellectual infrastructure, closed loop between research and enterprise initiative. There's another term called accelerator. Both are used in a kind of overlapping mode. There is an overlap because accelerators support early stage startups often with only idea, fixed timeline or completion for accelerator program, usually provide the capital, whereas incubators don't put any timeline, but unfortunately they don't provide any financial support. But both of them have a same goal, successful startup, irrespective of the time barriers as far as the incubators are concerned. So the weak link in India's startup system, I want to showcase for you. I have given a very rosy picture what India has done, but there is a metric for that. If I take the metric, total recognized incubators, what you have? Only 1100. Accelerators, formal, less than 250. Active TTO office less than 100. IP to license conversion less than 5%. Startups from public funded R&D less than 1.5%. And incubators with TRL tracking or commercialization matrices. TRL, technology readiness level, less than 20%. So due to underdeveloped, underfunded and unevenly distributed incubators, TTOs and accelerators, India's startup economy risk being idea rich. We are idea rich, but we are product poor. We are not a product nation. We are a nation of assemblers. We have to become a product nation. You have a wide R&D base, which is visible here. You have some translation and support infrastructure, which is visible. You have incubators, small numbers, TTOs, small numbers, accelerators. But despite all that, few startups emerge. So that is the scenario what we are having. So I would, to conclude, say a few words as far as the way forward is concerned. India has to increase R&D budget up to the level of 2-3% of GDP. Private sector participation, and I think for that Government of India has come out with a scheme called 1 lakh crore over a period of 50 years only for supporting R&D in the private sector. That money will be used only for giving low interest loans, hybrid funding, some grants. I don't know, the methodology is even today worked out, but ANRF is going to control that. So international collaboration, I mentioned to you, important. Gaps in the R&D ecosystem and innovation capacity has to be fulfilled. So national innovation hubs have to be created, like artificial intelligence, clean energy and biotechnology. We have to boost indigenous research. This is a major point I want to tell you about research. Research in India is based upon what is happening abroad. Our research, if you see a paper in a particular journal, whether it's IEEE or Nature or something, you immediately say, oh, I can also do that. Then what you do? You add something on that or you repeat that. That's all what we do. We are not saying any other area where I am making a breakthrough in a concept and coming up with that. That's called original research is missing. Our research is additive and repetitive. So this should go. We have to expand our fellowship and grants to encourage indigenous research, strengthen our technology transfer, sociological and educational gaps. Even today, NEP 2020 was supposed to have started in 2021. We are 5 years into it now. But the adoption of NEP 2020 remains a question mark in terms of percentage. There are only very few institutions in the country who have fully adopted all the declarations of NEP 2020. So STEM education becomes very important. Bridging the gender gap is important. Launch scholarships and mentorship programs targeting women in STEM. I want to give you a very interesting figure. The STEM, women up to 12th standard are taking science, technology and mathematics higher than the boys. But when it comes down, when they go into higher education, this number changes. The men are going more and the women are going less. So this trend has to be reversed. Regulatory reforms I mentioned to you, like biotech, artificial intelligence, renewable energy, streamline all the regulations. Data sovereignty. So data is the oil today. Data is important for economic growth and data is being compromised today. I'll give you an example. All of you see the wind energy farms. All of them are running day in and day out. There's a controller which connects it to the grid. That controller comes from China. And that controller has the control of China because all the data through the satellite link is going to the Chinese data centers. So if that controller is, if China wants to play with your wind system, he can do anything. And that controller is not developed in India. So if this is the kind of a thing we have, then data sovereignty cannot be maintained. We have to do data production. So India's future, in other words, to conclude, I will say, in research and innovation depends not only in funding science, but on engineering and ecosystem where research can evolve into invention and invention into impact. And that is where Vijnana Jyoti, your institution and others can make a change. I request all of you to focus on research along with your education, focus on innovation, create an infrastructure which will support the creativity of all these boys and girls here and ensure that in NRF ranking tomorrow, probably when you go in the numbers, you will be missing that particular point because you don't have that kind of thing. So if you do that, I'm sure you will be emerging as one of the best institutions. Wish you good luck. Thank you very much.